Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy and Mike. Well, we made it back. There's a little technical issues after these breaks, these long breaks. It takes us a bit to get all the computers re-signed in and logged in. So sorry we're starting a little bit late, but that's how it goes.
Mike, I'm a little concerned because we haven't done a live podcast in 2.5 weeks. I don't know if we know what we're doing.
We never knew what we were doing. We've always
Yeah, I
done
know.
it. Could you tell me when we started to know what we were doing? Like that would be more helpful, I think,
I
actually.
haven't figured it out yet. No. So
I think you're right on that one. I don't think we actually ever knew what we were doing to begin with. So,
it's good to see your face. It's good to see your face. There's something about community, getting together with people. And yeah, it happens to be about data. So it's good to be back.
I would agree with that as well. So for those of you who are kind of just rejoining again, we're coming back off of Thanksgiving break. We're getting back into the routine of doing some more episodes. The holidays for us in the U.S., Thanksgiving is in November. We have Christmas in December. Usually we have to do a lot more recording and kind of juggling around different shows and episodes. So bear with us while we do a mix of pre-recorded and actual episodes here for the end of the year. That being said, let's talk about our main topic today, and we'll get into our news for this episode. The main topic today is going to be Microsoft Ignite and recapping the things that occurred inside November. There's a lot of things that have been announced. There's actually two really new features that are really interesting that I want to kind of unpack with you, Tommy. Like, what does it
Yeah.
mean? How are we going to use it? So, ontology being one of them, and Fabric IQ possibly being the second. So, interesting what these two new experiences or features are going to turn into. Be kind of curious to see how we unpack them and how
Oh.
useful they'll be in our data. Anyways, that being said, Tommy, over to you for some news items.
So I have 3 beats from the streets here that I think you're going to love, and I think other listeners are too. And it's really utilizing AI for productive use. And I have 3 different tools that all you probably use today. And I'm going to challenge people that some of these, if you're not doing it, I think you're doing AI wrong. We're going to talk about Faciliator, ChatGPT in conversations and projects, and Claude code. So let's dive in.
Yeah, so I'm going to quickly jump in here. I think this has been the piece that's been slightly missing here for AI for a while. It's been useful in very specific use cases. I feel like AI has been very like equipped to do like
Mhm.
code generation, and over the last, I don't know, 3 to 6 months,
Mhm.
it seems like that part of AI has been doing a really good job at building those things.
Yeah.
And Tommy, I'm gonna add one more thing here to your
Okay.
quick news item. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna go Google Gemini at the end here.
Okay.
I've been playing with that. I think it's Google Gemini 3 is what I've been playing with, and I have a story about that of what I did over break as well. So
Okay.
you're gonna get a lot of news stories today because Tommy and I've had some time off to like not do work, and we've been able to explore things. So this is
Yeah.
probably why we have a lot of like thoughts on the AI space. But
Yeah.
in essence, here I would just say AI is very fascinating right now. It's getting very interesting what it can do, and I think we're starting to see now that AI has been out for a bit. I think we're starting to really start seeing real tools appearing that are enabling you to do things a different way. And I heard someone say this on like a YouTube short or something like that. It's we're not prepared yet for the economy of the AI. Like the AI
Mhm.
is a brand new market economy. It's going to change how we do things. So we're in the middle of a really big shift from the way we used to work to the way we will be working moving forward. And I think I'm starting to feel that. I feel like that's occurring. We're physically shifting what we do, and we're going to be looking at a new economy of things that have AI in them.
And it's funny too, because I'm sure there's some people listening who are a little dissenting. Like, I thought this was a Power BI podcast. Why do they talk about AI so much? Well, if you happen to be at Ignite or read anything from Ignite,
That's true.
unfortunately, we are in an integration with data runs or AI runs on data.
Yeah.
And we're realizing, if anything, we are the most prepared for this avalanche of what AI is going to do at organizations
Yes.
because it runs on data.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
and with the semantic models later on top of that. That being said, we're also very nerdy. So there you go. All right.
All right, awesome.
So let's dive
Facilitator.
in. Yeah. So you ever play a video game and there were like Easter eggs in it? And you're like, oh,
Yes.
I didn't know about that. Well,
Mhm.
Facilitator also has some Easter eggs too that can be incredibly helpful. If
Interesting.
you Facilitator, for those who are not aware, is a Microsoft Teams feature that simply takes your notes, will do the summary, will do action items, really kind of be that assistant during that call. So you don't have to worry about taking notes.
Yeah.
Now, facilitator always takes the same structure in terms of the output. There's a summary, there's what was talked about, there's always the action items.
Correct.
You can prompt facilitator without actually saying facilitator with certain keywords during the conversation, I found out, which completely changes the output and the output, the actual value of the output that you're getting from facilitator. So during every call where I have facilitator on, I'll always end with, okay, so the action items, if I'm hearing, and I make sure I say the words
Yeah, action items.
right, and I'll say what we cover. You
Mhm.
use the way facilitator structure is, and you're going to get that exactly outputted in facilitator, not miss anything.
I would agree.
Say, "Hey, let's add to the notes here." If I even say those words too, let's add to the notes, or let's make sure this is really important for the call or for the next steps that we do X, Y, and Z, yada, yada, yada. It's
Yep.
gonna be highlighted in the beginning. So these little kind of I call them Easter eggs because they're not really well known. And it's not like facilitator says, you unlock something, hey,
Yeah.
let us
Yeah.
know, but it just feeds into the output. So every call I have, I'm making sure that I'm speaking to facilitator without not actually referencing it. Now, cool thing, you can also reference facilitators like, hey, facilitator, make sure you get this. This is going to be
Sure.
really important. We need to follow up on this.
Yeah.
That also works too. But just saying certain key words during the conversation is going to let facilitator know this is essential. We're going to add it here.
So there's Tommy, I like this. I think this is very interesting. And facilitator, I would agree. When you paid for Teams Premium, so there's like a Teams, you can buy regular Teams, and this is like a Teams Premium feature that has the AI bolted onto it. They did a lot of like AI, summary meeting. Like the Teams Premium was like after the meeting occurred, it had like a summary and it had like notes and all the transcription stuff completed and done. That was interesting. But for me, facilitators really has moved the needle for like if I'm gonna be paying for extra money for teams,
Mhm.
I'm definitely gonna want this thing called facilitator. And what I'm waiting for here is I need some tighter integration between what facilitator is doing and like other AIs or things that are occurring inside this. So one of the things I'm also using, I use Loop. And so when facilitator takes notes, it takes notes in Loop, which is a good thing for me because I'm already kind of in that bandwagon of taking the Loop notes, which is great. It also does the action items at the end, I found I really like. And then also, if you go to the action items at the end, you can even it puts in whose name it thinks it should be,
Yeah.
like in the description, but you can go in and actually add the name of the user who's supposed to go do the action. And because I work with a team, I like assigning people to those things. Also, a good meeting runner, manager, whatever, should also say, here's the actions and here and you, the person doing them, tell me when you think you can get them done by and noting when
Mhm.
they should be completed by. And what I found is when I do this at the end of meetings, the notes and the action items that come out of Loop actually go on other people's to-do lists. And if
Which
you
is
use the
pretty
to-do
awesome.
app, it automatically goes over there. And I heard someone else talk about this too, Tommy. I don't know if you do this as well with Facilitator. At the end of the meeting, after everyone leaves, you can talk to facilitator at the end of the meeting and give it extra information. Well, at the end of meetings
Yeah, that
occurred,
makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
So you can actually. So I have done a couple times where I've gone through
Yeah.
the meeting. Thanks everyone, bye, and then let everyone leave the meeting, and then I've gone on there and talked a little bit more to facilitator. I've read through the notes. I've also noticed when facilitator is making notes, it's not just making notes linearly. It's
Oh,
actually
I
making notes
see.
in topics, and as we're talking about things, we may revisit something earlier.
Mhm.
Facilitator goes back to the notes area where we were talking about that and adds additional
Yeah.
notes. So
Yeah,
again,
it's not just this long list
it's
of
not
what
like a
you
long list
said.
of notes. It takes like topics. So when it does the summary or when it's taking notes, it's giving you bundled topics of things and showing you what happened in those. And I think those are really good, especially if you're one not in the meeting. But
Right.
then going back to this at the end of the meeting experience, at the end of the meeting, you can read through the notes and then say, facilitator, add some additional notes around this topic in this section, and it will go back and add them in the middle of that section.
Mhm.
That way you have all your mental memory captured right
Right.
inside the meeting, which is kind of
And
cool.
which is a good exercise. My former mentor actually taught me that. Say, hey, if we're on a call and we're a big part of that, stay on the call until everyone leaves. We'll just kind of
Yes.
bake everything out.
Hash it out a little bit
So
more at the
yeah.
end. Yeah, I
Also,
agree
you
with
can
that.
vent like, I don't think Jim's gonna do that. Facilitator, make sure you put that down. I'm concerned.
Well,
Just don't add to the notes.
there's another little So that's what it does right now, and those things
Yeah.
are, I think, impressive. I agree, Tommy. This is a great hack. Like just using it more efficiently, making sure you have it
Mhm.
on. I think this is a very good, useful experience. One of the things I would like it to also do, in addition to this, is I need to be able to action other agents or other things to do something on
I was
top of
talking
this.
about that.
Right? One thing I'd like it to do is I'd like to be able to say, look, there's an agent that can read this loop document, and I could trigger from Faciliator, okay, wrap up these notes, put these notes, or take action item one, take action item two,
Oh, yeah.
take note this, and write an email to everyone and summarize it and put it in the email for everyone and put it in my drafts. So I'd like to prompt at the end of the meeting, Tommy, going back to that. I'd like to have some additional like prompting that I'm speaking to the AI in and having it do like the next step of things. Hey, for example, I'm
Yeah.
in take this information and add it to a dynamics new contact for this person, this person, this person. Like I should be able to trigger multiple actions that do other things that go off and start automating little pieces of actions around. So that way my workflow is take the meeting, talk to the AI at the end, and then from that a series of actions are able to be taken or handled from the next steps.
Really just better integration with Copilot Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the idea is like, hey, facilitator, make sure you get our PO agent.
Yep.
Make sure any outstanding PO agents in the Northeast or POs in the Northeast are sent to me, so I know what's there,
Yeah.
and that should be trigger that off. So we're working
Exactly
on
right.
that.
Mhm.
All right, I know we have so much to cover.
Yep.
This next one is probably going to be my hottest take I've said in a long time.
Okay.
But if you're not using ChatGPT's conversation and project feature together, I think you're doing AI wrong. And let me
I
elaborate.
don't use this one, so this is one you're gonna have to inform me on a little bit, everyone.
I'm
So
gonna
I'm using
okay,
more Claude Code, and I'm doing a lot
yeah.
more code, like, for and I also
So
wanna hear
this
around
is
Gemini.
yeah. So the code's different. So
Yeah.
I'll give you. I'll try to be as general as possible here on the
Y
example, but
yeah.
I'm working with a company that's helping my own company out in terms from leads, and there's basically a lot of training that has to be done. I have to kind of provide the script, but there's videos on videos on videos I have to watch, and
Yeah.
it's about like kind of this methodology from a better speaking and a lot of different
Sure.
concepts. I'm
Mhm.
not a video person, and there's a lot that I have to output here, like a script, this big shift idea. It's really cool. So what I did is I took all the transcripts and added it to a chat GPT project. So now it has all these
Mm.
VTT files and PDFs, like, the cheat sheet, the book,
Sure.
even the book, like the giant book.
Yeah.
And what I started is I just stood up, had my microphone up, and began to have a thinking exercise with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
no typing at all, Mike. And basically, what I did was, hey, ChatGPT, we got to build out this ERT script, for lack of a better term. And can you tell me what needs to be part of that ERT script? Okay, it went through it. It's like, all right, what I want to do with you. I want to do a thought exercise with you. So take a look at all the components that are necessary to complete this and then ask me some questions. So I'll give you my responses on my past experience. So, and make sure you keep it in my tone. Mike, I did this for 45 minutes and just, it was the most fluid conversation I've really ever had with a chatbot, but it was also in the context, it had all the domain knowledge of this tool. This was that you're not going to find in Google because it was only for this company.
Yeah.
And we went through, it's like, hey, no, I don't like that. What about this, napkin idea? Do we have files for the napkin idea? They said, no, I don't see that. Why don't you go ahead and add that?
Mm.
Got that file out of that in. It's like, okay, tell me more about this. What's a part of that? So then it would ask me a question like, hey, give me an example of when you had this type of situation in your data. It already has the memory of me because the
Yeah.
project custom instructions
Sure.
as a fabric consultant, all this. And for 45 minutes, Mike, it spit out afterwards everything. And it was a lot of phenomenal content in the format that was needed with each of the components. Take in mind, these were like 2 hours, 2.5 hours of videos I could have watched. That I'm not a video person, but more importantly, I think we forget too when we're talking with these chatbots, typing is a lot different than having a conversation when you're actually like when we do in the podcast, like
Yeah.
when I'm
True.
talking to you, that conversation, the value that I'm finding from this is been bar none. I'm not going to say that, but it's one of the top three things I'm finding with AI in general that's changing my workflow. And
Uh,
I think if people aren't doing this, I think you're missing half the value.
This is interesting. So I'm doing a little bit of while you're saying this, I'm trying to get
Yeah.
things together. I mean, this whole concept of like memory and documents and a lot of
Mhm.
other referenced materials to like pull from. So there's this idea of like, I remember when we first came out with a lot of agents things, they're like, well, agents and AI really shouldn't be a search thing. It's
Right.
good. It does a good job of searching and finding things, but then it also does a good job of like,
Mhm.
I remember us talking a lot about like RAG initially when
Yeah.
large language models came out. And when you talk to Microsoft, they're like, we really don't want agents to just be like a big search engine. You've already got
Right.
Bing and other things out there to search really well. Like, why do we need these large language models to be searching things? What it feels like it's starting to turn into is it's more of like it's less about search. It's now more about idea aggregation. Like, here's a bunch of materials that have a whole bunch of ideas and concepts in them. You need to, as the agent, scan through these things and
Right.
produce ideas or conceptual summaries of
Right.
what's happening. And that's what we do, right? We can't, Tommy, we can't read an entire or watch all the videos and sit down and know every single word on every single thing. We always
Right.
take that information and kind of like aggregate it down to something we understand, something we relate to. And then we can speak to those topics or speak to those concepts, but we're not actually speaking to the actual individual words that were made in the slides, which I find is very interesting. I like this idea, Tommy. I think this is really good. And I think, honestly, this idea of a project in ChatGPT is starting to feel very similar to like the ontology in Fabric that we're seeing. So I think we're starting to see
Oh,
like
I cannot wait to get into that. Yeah.
concepts that are like connecting between different
Mhm.
areas here, is how I'm starting to see this thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
And then the last one, I'll quickly go because, like you said, major announcements at Ignite. But
Yeah.
Claude Code, if you're a developer, or Mike, even if you're doing Git in workspaces,
Yeah.
Claude Code is a concept, and it's in each one. Codex for ChatGPT, I
Hmm.
think. They're the only two major ones, and then Cursor has their own agents. But this idea of I'm going to connect to a workspace or a folder on my machine,
Hmm.
and this is, yeah, at first sounds very similar to something you do in VS Code with an IDE program.
Sure.
However, Claude Code is now integrated in Claude Code Desktop, but I can also use it in the browser or I
Mhm.
can use it in my terminal. And it's basically prompting and basically go through everything. For example, I have a semantic model. I have all these repos or semantic model folders, PPIR, the projects. It's like, I want to add descriptions to everything. Before you add the descriptions, look at each of the measures, look at the tables. I want you to evaluate yada, yada, yada. And what happens with each of these projects is I can do something else on my computer and it will just run. It is
Yeah.
truly, to me, the definition of an agent of the automation side. Now, why would you do this and not just VS Code and GitHub? Well, GitHub is also pushing for this too. There are GitHub agents.
Mhm.
And the really, to me, the value here is when you open up an IDE like VS Code or Cursor, well, it takes a lot of runtime on your computer. Like
Sure.
it's pretty intensive. You don't want a lot of other things running. With this, Mike, I mean, it is running, 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 and it is just in the background. I am finding I'm using this anytime I'm doing anything in a semantic model repo or a Power BI repo or my own projects when it comes to AI.
Mhm.
This is my default now.
I've
I
been
start
seeing
with this.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people really pushing on Claude Code. We don't buy Claude Code directly, so we don't use the
Mhm,
Claude Code Claude,
mhm.
service area. Because I think, Tommy, you buy a lot of different services. You've been buying
I
like
gotta
Claude
test it,
Code,
man.
you've got ChatGPT, you've got Copilot. Like, there's multiple agents that you're kind of using to run things. I think you even have GitHub Copilot, which is a
We
GitHub.
all do. All MVPs do.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like, GitHub
yeah.
Copilot is like an interesting animal
I test. Yeah,
because
yes,
it's
yeah.
like it lets you have it has a copilot, but it's not really a copilot. It's like you can pick a large language model you want
Right.
to go with it. So we have chosen to kind of like centralize around anything VS Code related. So a lot of our paying features is against the VS Code because a lot of our dev time is spent in VS Code
VS
and writing code stuff like that. So we're not really spending a ton of time on Claude. Um, we've some of our employees have found some really good use around Cursor. Cursor's been doing some really,
Mhm.
again. So it's kind of like this. I feel like it's a three-horse race right now between like Cursor, Claude Code, and then Copilot
Yeah.
in GitHub. The other copilots that I'm seeing not as effective. It's the GitHub Copilot that we really like. because we can pick whatever model we want. Like we
Right.
can get the latest models. They're Gemini. There's Claude Code. We can use Grok. Like anything we want. All the models exist, and any one of those models can be used inside the concept of
Right.
GitHub VS Code. So I like this idea, Tommy. I think this is really interesting that you're finding this around Claude Code. I would agree. Check it out if you're a developer. One thing I will also want to throw in the mix here is I think we're very close to entering a new era of never writing code and being able to commoditize app development like we've never seen before.
Oh my
So
god.
I had just started playing with Google Gemini 3, and
Yeah.
there's the Google AI Studio, which you can go use, which I'm having a vision of something here that I really like. So I was okay, I'm on vacation. I'm kind of bored. Not bored. I'm just sitting around. I'm looking at stuff. People are taking a rest or whatever. And my mind is just going like, what can I invent right now? I want to build something. And so my family, my kids are playing some video games. I'm thinking, yeah, playing video games is one thing, but being able to come up with the idea of how to build the video game, that seems much more
Interesting.
constructive. Just in general. Like
Oh, I know. Yeah.
game design and game theory, and it just seems a bit more of it's okay. I find I've played a lot of video games in my day, but I'd actually like to what happens if I want to start building them. And so I went into Google Gemini 3, logged into AI Studio, started playing with it, and I started building my own strategy game. So
Really?
yes, and I was incredibly impressed how well it was able to start the code base. So I made a map. On the map there were trees and there were mines. And then I had to have a character show up. So the character would be on the map. I could click the character and then I would move them around the map. And what I was doing is I was trying to learn what information, how descriptive do I need to be
Mhm.
for the agent to understand what I want it to do? Right. So there's this gap between agents are super capable. They can do a lot of really rich things, but there's a knowledge gap in what I know how to prompt it with. How do I give it instructions? What works really well? Um, how do I design these things in a way that helps me get like an output that I want? Right. Um, so I started just kind of vibe coding this strategy game, and in about maybe an hour and a half, my son's playing Minecraft, and I'm over here going, "You want to see the game I built?" He's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah,
Oh,
while you were playing Minecraft and building a world in there, I had built my own game." And so I showed him the game, and immediately it was very enriching because it was a conversation around, "Well, could you add this? What about
right.
enemies?
Right.
Well, you're just a flat map with a green background. Can we make other, you know,
The creative side of it,
the
right?
creative
Yeah.
side, like the things that are like, this is really interesting." So it immediately starts taking me away from just saying I'm just blindly following a game. And I'm looking at what my family's playing. They're playing things like Block Blast. They're playing things like these are games that would be like pretty easy to replicate
Right.
and rebuild using like AI prompting. So all this to say is I think I'm getting to a place where it was well, one more comment and then I'm going to get to my idea.
Okay.
The other comment is when you were playing with this, writing the code, there was a code and prompting section, and then there was a preview section. And I was able to your point,
Oh,
Tommy, around using your computer. On one hand, I could switch over on my desktop. I could have the code prompting section on the left hand side, had a preview window on the right. I could just give it commands. Hey, add the character, make the character selectable. If I click the character a second time, it deselects them. Here's how to add new characters. I was doing
right.
all these things to build additional characters. So we had this, the idea was I built a character. The character had to go mine trees, go mine gold, come back, build a hut or like a home base. Once they built the home base, you could have more workers being produced. So I could get more workers to get more resources. Okay, so then how do I use those resources to do more things? Well,
So
then
StarCraft.
basically very early versions of Warcraft or StarCraft, very
Yeah.
early versions. I love those kind of games. I thought those were
Oh,
very
dude.
fun. Um,
Yeah.
anyways, that being said, I stepped back from this and said, okay, what about an app that makes all the apps you would want to make? It was fun creating the game, but what about the mega app, right? I'm in Google Gemini Studio, and I have a project for the game that I'm making. What if on your phone, or any device for that matter, You just prompt it for what you want, and it builds inside that app everything that you need. So basically, you basically it's like it's a single app. It's like an AI app that helps you build mini apps inside it, and
Mhm,
basically it becomes self-sustaining at that point. You don't need any other apps on your phone. You don't need any other things that you have going on. You can literally go in and
mhm.
say, "I'm bored. I have this idea for a game. I'm going to orchestrate or talk to it to build out this little mini game," and you just play with it for 2 hours and you just kind of build up this thing and then you're done. And then imagine a whole economy that could be produced around this, which would be, I've made an app, it's good enough, I can share it out to a community that anyone else could just turn it on and run it directly inside the app, or they can go buy it from me. Like, hey, here's an
Right.
app that I made, I vibe coded this thing. You could take the app, get a copy of it, you pay for it, and then you could even enhance it. Like, oh, this is a neat app. Tommy, you made this really cool thing. It does like 80% of what I want. I want to make it do an extra 20% more. You go back and say, hey, add this extra thing to it, da 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 da, and you enhance it to what you want for what your needs are. And so now every app can start with like a base app and get customized per those users' needs. And I thought to myself, we're not far away from this. Like, this is
I
months away from where we're going to start seeing the monolithic app like AI Studio being able to produce all these mini apps in line while chatting with it.
I would even go a step further, Mike, to say I think that's possible now because the value of the agents of the Claude Code and the Codex and GitHub is it's not just so much I'm doing it on my local computer, Mike. It's like so if I want to make a modification, like so I've talked about this before. I have a local model manager for my all my local AI models and I categorize them
And
and
what do
rate
you use
them.
for that? Because I want to call that one out specifically.
Um what
What do
you
you
mean like
what
which
program do you use
tool?
to manage all your local models for? Is it Notebook
Hugging
LM?
Face.
Oh,
No,
you
no,
use Hugging. Okay,
yeah.
so you're
So
using
I'll
Hugging
do
Face to do the
Hugging
models.
Face
Okay.
and then yeah, so and all of those, like I categorize them, I rate them. I like to add descriptions and also like the custom instructions how they feed team fit. Like you can
Yes.
use LM Studio, whatever. But the thing is, I have this application that runs, Mike. It's a GitHub repo. It's a GitHub repo. So if I want to make a change to the application, all I have to do, I don't have to open my computer. I can literally go on my phone, go to Claude Code, connect to that repo, and say, you know what? I wish I could add my own custom logo for each thing, custom image to kind of see it, whatever the case may be, you know, or a description, or categorize it with a green, blue, and GitHub. It will run GitHub. It's not running on my machine. It's not running on my computer. It's running the GitHub repo, creating a new branch. Kind of also learning that. So now I have these branches to test things out. We're getting to the point, Mike, where you can then, in a sense, launch that if you're using a paid subscription at this point. But launch that, and I can do this on my iPad or my phone. I don't need my computer to have these applications. And keep in mind, this local application that's being built is JavaScript, Python, HTML. I don't
Mm.
know any like I know Python, but the other two I've never built any. I've done HTML, when in
Back in the
WYSIWYG.
day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but these applications are running and it becomes a web app, right? So it becomes an application on my phone to your point. So yeah, it's ridiculous. And also I would encourage you with that thing you're building, Mike, build it in a GitHub repo, a private repo, and then you can, in a sense, do all these enhancements without having to really even utilize your computer.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
And so
yeah.
you're using cloud computing to do this one. And James is actually coming out some really good comments here. He's like asking things like, how would user support work in your app? I'm like, well, it's an agent, so the agent already knows it wrote the app to begin with.
Hmm.
You just have the agent self support it. Like, you'd have, in your initial app, say, hey agent, add a feature in the bottom right hand corner that says, if you have any questions, open a little chat window and let the user chat to yourself and then figure out the questions for it. Like, I think the
Right.
agents itself, so that's interesting. And then James also asked, well, who pays for the tokens when you sell or purchase this app? Well, my assumption here is everyone buys something like Google AI Studio or
Right.
the general app. So you buy the general app, and then you're buying Google's version of the agent. So everyone basically is
Right.
paying Google, but there's a micro economy running where I'm building things and I'm selling mini apps in them.
Right.
I'm paying for Google AI Studio. Tommy, you're paying for Google AI Studio, and since both of us are paying for the same base product, I just make the app. I sell it to you, Tommy, You now have the app, you can start from there,
Sign into
and
Google and you're good kind of
then you
thing.
just sign into Google, and then all the app lights up. You have all the icons
Yeah,
that you need. I mean, it could literally, and then Tommy, if you have any questions, if you want to change things, or you have any issues about the app, you're just using your tokens going back to your
right,
subscription anyway. So all it does is back to Google. Now they have everyone paying for Google AI Studio subscriptions, and inside there now they have a whole
right,
library of apps that they've been building or sharing or
right,
selling. Now becomes a micro economy inside this larger
right.
Google AI Studio. I think this really works. I'm not
I
sure if this
think
is
I
actually a
think we're
thing.
getting something. So I think we're getting something. But Mike, I think we need to talk about Fabric.
All right, let's move
We're
on.
halfway
We've been
there.
doing a
I love this. I
lot of
love
new
this. But
stuff.
we have major announcements.
Well, let me just tie one thing in here really quick.
Okay.
I think let's talk about Fabric and what Fabric is doing and all these concepts around what AI is occurring. So, a lot of the things that are interesting here, Tommy and I are exploring a lot of like what AI can do in our workflows, how we integrate things with it. AI needs a lot of data to begin with. In our data models, in our semantic models, we have a lot of ontology type things. This is what we're going to be talking about from one of the announcements from Ignite. But right now, we haven't quite seen the intersection occur yet. So I
Mhm.
think what's happening here is there's so much changing in the AI space. We're getting like a very clear like it's not diverging, but we're getting closer and closer to merging together. And let's imagine my idea about vibe coding the app, right? If we're vibe coding these apps,
Mm,
why can't we vibe
Vibe
code
code Fabric.
Fabric? Why can't we vibe code an environment? Why can't we vibe? So right now, it's not connected today, but I see really in the near term, because of what we're talking about here in the AI space of what AI is doing separately outside of Fabric, I don't think it's going to be very long, Tommy, before we're going to start really vibe coding a lot more directly inside our applications. And I think I saw an article recently from Brian Julius talking about how he likes MCPs, but
Yeah,
now he's moving away from MCPs and favoring Claude Code directly because it's more efficient and using less tokens.
I agree. I
So
100% agree with that
so
statement.
even now, like MCPs were like the new hot thing. They're interesting, but at some point they're going to become obsolete, and the next thing is going to occur. And so
W
we're going to
They
keep
run so
evolving this.
much, because when you have the NCPs, and I've noticed this with Claude Code and VS Code, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of tokens on your computer, and so you have to be wary of that. So I agree with you completely on that, and we're gonna get there, I think, with vibe coding and Fabric, but in you,
It's interesting.
yeah, and I think there's a big some intersections here, but Mike, I we have 91 features that came out from Microsoft Ignite.
Yeah, 91.
And
Yes.
yeah, so for those who are unaware, while we were on our vacations eating our turkeys and all those things, Microsoft Ignite also occurred. And Microsoft Ignite is the second biggest conference for us Fabric people, for us Power BI people.
Hmm.
The other one occurring at FabCon, no, would be FabCon would be the first, and then Ignite is the second. Basically, it's our second biggest holiday
Hmm.
on the liturgical Fabric calendar. Uh,
It's true.
and it comes with a lot of features. There's a ton. There's going to be, I think, two you and I dive into, but what do you think of this? Why don't I run through some preview features, and I just want to run through them. I think this is going to be a lot of our conversation for the next, few episodes.
Yeah.
But there's a few previews, a few GAs. Again, 91 to go through, and I think a lot of them are really cool. Why don't we talk about quickly some of the just new things that came out? Just kind of what
Yeah.
is it? When I think shotgun it or machine gun it, and then we'll go into, I think, the one everyone wants to hear about.
Okay. Yep. Let's start there, Tommy.
All right, so Fabric and agents, Fabric IQ. We're going to talk about that and this ontology thing. A ton of things with data agents, such as data agent unstructured data support, so you can read over documents and PDFs, which is freaking pretty going to be good because I've been
Yep.
asking for this.
Yes.
Query Fabric data directly from M365 apps, the NCP server for data agents, and prep for AI support. Speaking MCP, we also have remote Power BI server in preview, Power BI modeling MCP server in preview, and standalone Copilot mobile in the service that
There's
are
been
getting,
this
yeah,
is this is our point earlier. Like this
yeah,
MCP thing has gotten very hot, and right now people are finding immense amount of value from it. I'm also seeing a lot of
right,
LinkedIn and Twitter and comments around the MCP showing up and being able to do MCP things to a semantic model from your VS Code instance directly inside
right, Right.
desktop, right? So this is changing the model in real time using the MCP server. I've also seen a number of open source community projects show up there around MCPs for Power BI and Power BI Desktop. So there's a lot of things happening very quickly here where MCPs are like proliferating. Fabric MCP, Data
Yeah.
Warehouse MCP, Power BI Desktop MCP. There's all these different servers that are showing up. And again, I'm not sure they're always going to exist, but this is like a stepping stone into something else that may happen.
I completely agree with that. It's a
Yeah.
pillar to get to somewhere else, but
Yeah. Agree.
they are important now. Let's give Power BI some love because we have a ton with Power BI. I think how many do
Yes.
we have? And there are good ones here. It's not just, we updated. You can now make your page gray. For Power BI, we have 17. So we talked about those MCP ones.
Hmm.
We have a few with our also card visual is now GA, the hero images, and they made updates to the image visual enhancements. There's an update for our matrix. Our matrix can grow to fit. It can auto expand columns to fit available space.
Okay. Just pause right there. Let's give a clap. Let's give a round of applause for like auto sizing columns correctly. Like,
Single clap, only a single clap.
okay, that's something that has been needed for quite a while and has been quite a pain and very painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's what's
Because
up.
you know what? It should have been out earlier. So
Should have
that's
been
why
out a
it's a
lot
single
earlier, but
clap.
very
Yeah.
happy that it's here now
Yeah.
and about time. So very, very pleased about that one.
Semantic model version history is GA. The Tim Delvias code extension is GA. And translytical task flows in the One Lake catalog are going to be in preview. That's another conversation for another day and the
It's a
importance of
very
there.
specific need.
Yeah,
What I think Microsoft
I know.
needs to do, like that one is very powerful. What Microsoft
Mhm.
needs to solve is Microsoft needs to build another visual that is a table
Right.
or a matrix that is legit right back. Like just we have all the pieces. We have functions, we have the visuals. Like someone needs to come up with like the open source, the version of the visual for right back from a table where I could enter multiple cells of data, hit
Mike, if we
submit on the
haven't
visual,
gotten
and
it
it sends
now,
it back.
yeah. If they haven't worked on it for the last 10,
They're
11
not going to do it
years,
anytime
they're
soon.
not going to do it.
It's not
Yeah, I
happening.
know. Yeah.
I
That
know.
dream's gone. And for you heavy developers out there, VR and Python visual deprecation for embedded, which only means that Python and R are going away too at some point to
If
me.
they're not doing it in embedded, that just means they're just reducing some of
Yeah.
the codes. It means
Yeah.
no one's using it, honestly.
Yeah.
This is again one of these features of like if no one's using it, they're gonna
Yeah.
get rid of it at some
For
point.
you heavy data engineers out there, DBT is going to be available in Data Factory. There's the Fusion engine coming in 2016.
Hmm.
There's a ton of things with DBT if you're not aware with that. It's a very developer centric, code heavy centric way of doing data engineering. Export query results from Power Query Desktop. We have some more function transformers for AI. IntelliSense and Power Query Online. It's available. So excellent there. Let's move on to databases. Few claps for databases. Now GA, which I haven't seen a lot of major updates with databases, but I'm happy to see this.
I
So,
think it's happening not subtly, but I feel like
right.
databases are so I feel like there's been a community when we talk about data platform for like Fabric Azure data platform pieces. One of the things that have been left out has been like the SQL DBA. Like where do
Yeah.
you fit? Where do you live inside in lieu of the space of Fabric?
Mhm.
But SQL, in my opinion, has been more of that transactional system. It's like the system that runs an app. It's a system that stands up and does
Yeah.
things. One of the things that I'm really excited about now is I like Fabric becoming a mix of reporting services, but also transactional services,
Mhm.
right? And so I feel like Cosmos DB, SQL databases, these are transactional type systems. Even Custo DB, for that matter, is a bit more real time and kind of like
Right.
transactional in nature a little bit. But I see like a vision here where Microsoft is going to continue to add features that are going to allow you to build your transactional system directly inside Fabric and do all your reporting inside one single ecosystem. I think it makes sense. I'm not sure if the community or the broader Power BI community at large has adopted this is the way we
Mhm.
should build things, but I think it's coming.
Cosmo DB is now GA in Fabric. Interesting. I just had a roundtable discussion with a few CIOs yesterday. They're like, the amount of cost we saved getting away from Cosmos, incredible. So that's cool, I guess.
What do you mean by that? You mean they had it originally and then they moved it over to what
Uh,
they
we,
move it to?
I we didn't go into the details on the actual what they went over to, but they're like, we had to make the migration because of the
Just get
cost.
off of the system. Yes.
Just get off the system. Yeah.
Well, what I have found, so we use Cosmos DB for things, and it's very good on extremely fast point lookups.
Right.
So if you're doing like aggregating or collecting lots of records to report on it, so where I find Cosmos DB falls apart, Cosmos DB is not efficient when it comes to grabbing lots of reporting data and getting it out. That's not the efficiency of it. Cosmos DB is extremely efficient when you're doing looking up a single record from a
Single
very wide
FTP.
database.
Yeah.
And we use a graph database on top of Cosmos DB, so we can do a lot of very intelligent traverses and like add relationships. It works really well when you know how to design the system around it. What I feel
But you
like
have to know how
happens,
to design
you
it.
got to know how to design it around. And I think that's sometimes some of the misnomer here. If you're building an app, it's really nice to be able to write and read data like
Right.
point lookups inside Cosmos DB, super efficient. And with minimal effort, you can get stuff in and out of there. But when it gets to like big scale stuff and you're trying to aggregate thousands or millions of records, Cosmos DB isn't the most efficient thing. That's when you're going to want to land things like in other systems and aggregate them and report on them. So I think there's just the design mentality that needs to be accommodated for when you're building Cosmos DB.
100%. So let's give some love to Chris Schmidt, who we just had on for real time anomaly detection preview for real time AI driven anomaly detection. He did mention this in our episodes.
Mhm.
This is now available in preview. Some user data functions, UDS activator integration. Love that. Which is now available. And then we'll go on to the One Lake platform. There's a lot of mirroring updates in terms of things being GA. And to me,
Yeah,
this makes sense. You want to focus, if I'm going to say what are my major focuses on One Lake right now, it's complete the mirroring and complete the shortcut feature integration, because that's where the value is. A ton of developer or security. And then when we go into developers, modeling, TMWS code we talked about, projects. We'll save that conversation about PBR becoming the default format for its own episode. Saw a
sure.
lot of chatter on LinkedIn about that. So and then AI
We
functions available.
we were very forward thinking on that one, Tommy, because right about the time everyone started chatting on LinkedIn about it, I've been
Mhm.
seeing a lot of conversations. I think we started a trend here because when we talked a little bit around, is the PBAX file dead? Like, and
Yeah,
then I
we had an
literally
episode on that.
we had an episode on that, and then literally within 2 weeks, I saw a ton of people on LinkedIn just posting PBX file is dead. PBX file is dead. I'm like, whoa, timeout. Like, okay, that was kind of a bit of a catchy title that we used in our
Right,
episode, but it's not dead. It's just shifting. It's just
right.
changing. So I think a lot of people globbed on to like our language that we were using there initially, which was the PBX file is no longer, but it is transforming into something new. And
Not
so
bad for two people who don't know what they're doing. So
well, I've been trying to like every time I find a conversation, I'm like, hey, we talked about this on our podcast. Like,
right.
there's more nuance than we're killing the PBIX file. There's just a lot more going on there.
Yeah. So those are, again, that's a shotgun. But Mike, we have 20 minutes, and I know this is not going to be the last time we talk about it, but I would like to dedicate the rest of the episode, because it deserves it, to the two major features, really two in one, I guess. You could really one
Yeah,
and
let's
the
go to it.
same,
Yes.
is this new thing called Fabric IQ.
Yes.
And the amount of thoughts I have on this
Okay. Let's go.
are pretty incredible. But let's back up.
Let's
Let's back
unpack
up.
Fabric IQ, and then I think because ontology is part of the Fabric IQ
Oh,
space.
I have thoughts. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So Fabric IQ, what is Fabric IQ? It's really this transformation Microsoft's doing from, and this is a big statement I'm about to make. This is from Microsoft, this is not a Tommy hot take. This is a Microsoft hot take.
Okay.
They are changing really Fabric and their idea of it from a data platform to now become an intelligence platform. And this is really, if you wanted to have the elevator pitch of what Fabric IQ is, it's really changing what Fabric's all about. It's no longer a data platform. It's going to be an intelligence platform. It's built around this idea called the ontology layer, which is really this idea of the semantic foundation within Fabric, where simply the ability to unify the data, the meaning of data, and the actions into a single semantic layer. It's helping AI agents and business users reason and automate. The ontology is the core item here, because it's going to connect the people, process, systems,
Yes.
actions, rules, and definitions into a unified model. So we're really, the way I'm thinking about this, or the way you think about it, is if semantic model was a 2D picture,
Hmm.
the ontology layer is making that 3D
Yeah,
because and I think I just thought of that just now, and I think I'm actually kind of proud of that.
it's adding
But so
another. I'll say it another way. It's
yeah,
adding another dimension to existing
right,
data you already have.
right.
And I like this idea of like the ontology part is interesting to me. And I got to really kind of put my head around like what does this mean? Because
Hmm.
there's lots of parts of your business that you can describe in like general terms, but
Right.
then you have data that attaches to those things. And I think also, Tommy, this seems like a preparation for like an AI agent, right? So we can't, to your point, Tommy, earlier, which is we can't supply all the information in every prompt every single time.
Right.
Sometimes the agent needs to make a decision based on, okay, we're talking about customers. What information or data is relevant to customers?
Hmm.
And so you may have to have something say, well, customers buy products. And so if your question to an agent is, what products are most important to these customers in this area? The agent has to go and discover, okay, I need to learn what this user is talking about.
Right.
Let's go figure out what the customers are doing. Let's go over here. Okay, customers buy products. Okay, this is how the relationship. So a customer buys the product. Here's the products that we offer. And then in each of those areas, we'll have data about customers and we'll have data about products and product sales. All of that needs to like this is the ontology space. Like this is the making relationships between tables of factual and dimensional data that you have in order to be able to like answer a question.
I have never been more excited and more prepared, and yet at the same time more concerned about a feature in Power BI until this.
You sure about that? I
And
mean, metric
I'm
sets?
no,
Even
no,
more? I
and
mean, you were pretty
no.
excited about metric
I
sets.
was excited, but what I'm saying here is I've never been not just excited, Mike. I don't think there's been a bigger impact that I feel like personally I'm prepared for and that's going to make an impact, but at the same time concerned about. And I think it's important here. Let's invoke one of our former hosts, Seth here, where and there's never been a more better time to say this. Words have meaning. And I think a lot of us are asking right now, well, what's ontology?
Yeah.
Well, let's define this piece. This is
Conceptually, like we have to unpack it. Yes.
yeah, and this is where the concern and the excitement comes from. It's really one of the same, like oil and water. Let's break down ontology here, and this is where
Well,
Mike, this is a big
before we go
impact.
there, let's
Okay,
let's
yeah,
go. Let's
sure.
finish your thoughts on IQ because I kind of interjected it
Okay,
slightly
yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
Keep
so
going.
fabric IQ, what you were describing was Tommy. Is like this, is like knowledge or information or intelligence now is a part of fabric, which I think this makes sense. This is a natural progression. I think it was business intelligence when we were just doing reporting, but now we're talking intelligence performance now that we're adding agents and other things on top of it. So I think the addition of agents changes how we would want to perceive what
Right,
a business intelligence platform should be doing. And I think this is what Microsoft is trying to push for. In the same way that Microsoft tried to commoditize semantic models by making it free in desktop,
right.
by making it easy to build, by giving you a UI, right? If you make it easy to create the thing, you'll have lots of them being created. I think this is the same mentality they're trying to go after with agents or
Yeah.
intelligence is let me make it easy for you to build relationships between things and now everyone can create intelligent like solutions.
So, do you remember when you started searching Google and you would search for like Christopher Columbus or someone, and all of a sudden it would show a picture, a description? This was like about 8 years ago, or actually
Sure.
more. It was probably like 12 years ago,
Okay.
and it was
Yep.
Google's graph. I was working at a digital marketing agency,
Sure.
and this is a big part of it. And the concept for Google at the time was, in a sense, from a universal point of view, if you're searching for a person, place, or thing,
Mm,
well, Google needs to understand it is a person, place, or thing. Now,
sure.
these are all the natural world, obviously historical events, you
Sure.
know, and really what on this Fabric IQ is in a sense doing that, but for the business.
Yes. In the context of
That's
like
in the
fabricy things.
context of the business of fabric
Yes.
information. Now, Fabric IQ also, and this is to me one of the bigger deals here too, or underrated features, is this is also connecting to your SharePoint information, your OneDrive information, the
Yes.
business too. Where I was speaking, I was doing a webinar on AI, and one of the big things we're talking about is this disconnect between that hard data, which you consider your table semantic model, and a company's soft data, the SharePoint, the Word
Mm,
documents that are essential and is still considered data because it is information, but there's a disconnect there. And Fabric's now connecting this where I have a semantic model, I have a planes or whatever, products. Well,
Yep.
they have images, they have,
Yes.
the Excel files, they have the
And they
Word
may live in like,
POs.
those things live in other places. Those are in SharePoint.
Exactly.
Some
So
things are
how do you
PDF.
categorize?
Some things are in
Right.
OneLake. Yes, exactly right.
Right. So it's basically graphing the concepts around your hard data, the semantic model, where I have product X. Well, it has all these other additional attributes. And this is Mike, for me, I'm personally excited for this because my background is philosophy, theology, and just sociology, which is actually I'm happy I did it. It took 50, 20 years, but now it's going to make a little sense. Working in data and this forefront of AI, you're realizing that this is now becoming the essential piece. This is, I think, what we've been looking for. I don't know if this is the exact platform or in a sense the user interface, but this is on that right track.
Yes, and I wanna add to your comment there, like, around, like, we're moving away from having to write lines of code and
Mhm,
understand code writing, and we're able to do orchestration or directing. And I was watching another YouTube short talking about some other people, I think it's the Startup Podcast, which is
mhm.
one I really enjoy talking and thinking through. It's a lot of, like, startup ideas for businesses, and one of the things that they're really touting right now is, like, we're in the age of directing. Like directing agents to do things,
Right.
directing things to do stuff
That
is like
conductor's area, yeah.
yeah, we're telling it what we want to design, and now it's how in our vision in our mind, how closely can we get to it's the ideas area. Like we're in the ideas world right now where anyone who comes up with an idea, we've commoditized the ability for anyone to make that idea and make it come true.
Mhm.
And so, in this Fabric IQ space, we're looking at a couple different features here, and I just put the link in the chat as well in case you want to read up a bit more about it. There's items in the Fabric IQ space. One is this thing called Ontology, currently in preview. Fabric data agents, that's been around for a little bit. We've been
But there's
playing with
also
this now,
yep.
but data agents in Fabric is a thing. Then there's the Microsoft Graph in Fabric. So now there's a graph item or graph in Microsoft Fabric, also in preview. The operations agent,
Mhm.
which is now there. It lets you create a real-time AI agent to monitor data in real time and then action on that real-time data, doing something with an agent in place there. And then you also have now our tried and true, the semantic model. So all these things are like housing, looking at, touching, being able to access data, and all of them are adding additional information enrichments on top of them. And then one of
Right.
them I'd argue very heavily here is the semantic model, right? This has been a staple for most of the system, which is here's our data, these are our dimensions, these are
Right.
our facts, these are the relationships between them. This makes a ton of sense to have these things related. What was missing is more metadata, more information that describes like
And
the ontology part, which is can ontology tell us what semantic model to use? What tables are there? Where'd they come from? The ontology piece of this is going to do a bit more of the intelligence side of things that are going to be it's basically downloading what you and I already built, Tommy. Like we know how to build this with pipelines and data transformations and building it. The ontology is giving more context around what we already know, and I would say maybe democratizing it or making it accessible or giving more ability for people who are non-technical builders to go interact with the data and see how it relates together.
here's the crux of it, Mike. So if you have anything more there, let's go on to the
Nope, I
definition of
don't.
ontology. Okay.
Yep, keep going.
This is where my concern comes in. Not so much on the product itself, but let's give the definition of ontology, and this is where the goosebumps happen. Ontology in the original definition is the branch of metaphysics and that studies the nature of being and existence and reality. It simply asks what actually exists, what categories of things are there. In so many words, Mike, if you were to break down the philosophical side and uh, is what makes a chair a chair? Does it have, four legs?
Oh, we're
My
going so
chair does.
meta.
Right, but this is what we're talking about here. But what makes a chair a chair? Does it have four legs in the back? My chair doesn't have four legs. It has six wheels, right? So what makes something what it is? Now, so I find it really interesting Microsoft's using this term to be a little more or less, in the clouds. But again, you have to bring philosophy into this. Is the formal, and this is Tom Gruber in 1993, a formal, explicit specification of a shared concept. What is something clearly defined? What are the concepts and constraints of something? What are the shared, agreed upon, basically rules of that by community or organization, and an abstract way of how something works in the real world? Okay, so that's ontology, and this is what Microsoft's trying to accomplish. Mike, the reason I am concerned about this is because, as essential as this is to AI, and it is, I think Microsoft's right to be putting this in the business.
I would
What
agree.
has been the biggest problem with just doing data in general with Power BI? The constant struggle at every organization without even bringing AI into the mix has been the shared idea of definitions, your inventory. How do we actually categorize things?
I'd agree.
And
This
that's
is a
not
major
even
challenge.
metaphysical.
I'd agree with that.
So I'm going to argue right here and right now, if you are not an expert or have the training or the experience on building data governance, this you are not going to succeed here. In fact, Mike, I don't think we've ever been at a point now, or we've never been more at a point where data governance has been more essential for an organization.
Hmm. Interesting comments. I guess where I would go with this one would be kind of maybe two areas here, right? So
Sure.
when we look at like going back to the ontology piece of this one, I put another link in the documentation here for other things around ontology, core concept definitions of the ontology itself, entity types, an entity instance, the property, and the relationships. And it goes through in the documentation a bit more. It says, what is an entity type? An entity type is like a shipment, a product, a sensor. The instance, which I'm not quite sure I'm clear on yet, but it's the occurrence of the entity type. And it says like a semantic row. They don't really give a good example of the entity instance,
Hmm.
something that could be true or false. I think in my mental model, I'm thinking of an entity instance like a customer, but a
Right.
customer has an address, and that address may change over time. So we have an instance of this customer, this address, and here's what it is today.
Right.
And this is what it was for November, but in December it changed, and now there's a new instance
Yeah.
of that entity. So it's still the same customer, but now it has like a different version to it, or there's some data that's being changed about it. They talk about the properties of it. Like customers have accounts, customers have addresses, customers have um, uh, you know uh, a scale, how good a customer is, a rating on them, or something like that. And then there's relationships. How does customers relate to products and what things they buy? So the ontology concept, I think, is just more about talking about bringing what we understand as people, the relationships between objects, and giving it into a computer that can actually handle it differently. So I think, to your point, Tommy, I'm gonna go back to what you were saying, which was like the data governance part of this. I think this is going to increase the number of conversations about making sure businesses identify how they do business. I can give you a really clear example. Time intelligence is quite complicated for people to get their head around what are they trying to actually do. So some businesses or some teams will get in the mindset of when we measure things week over week.
Hmm.
Um, if I want the same week last year, I don't really care about the dates. I just need the relative dates and time. And again, calendars and dates and times, it's very different because
Yeah.
as you think about these things, let's imagine Christmas. It's on December 25th. But that day of the week shifts year to year, and sometimes it's on a Wednesday, sometimes it's on a Sunday. It kind of changes throughout time. And so you have to think about when you're talking about like a marketing effort and what is impacting when people buy or acquire things, these moving, shifting periods of time matter. And so how your team looks at and analyzes the data may be slightly different from my team. But we have to sit back as like that governance piece and align on what is really important for us, right? For example, I know like Black Friday is like the same weekend all the time, no matter what. It's always Thursday, Friday, but the day of it actually shifts. So being able to build a calendar that allows you to shift periods of time. Hey, here's where Thanksgiving occurred in this year, prior year, and other year. You change how you think about the time in the calendar and say, okay, Thanksgiving is day 0. The day before Thanksgiving is day 1. 2 days before would be day 2. And so you have to build out other intelligent calendars so you can compare the proper data year over year as to what was your performance on years. You're not actually using the dates
Right.
themselves, right? So there's all these really weird definitions that you have to say, we need to talk about what this means so that when we talk as a company, a business, we're talking about the same information.
And everything you're saying, Mike, is all the hard data. That's just Power BI that we've already struggled with a lot of organizations struggle with, where
Yes,
that
correct.
success or failure of business intelligence is occurring and has occurred for the last 10 years, outside of now giving something in a sense of meaning. Like
Yes,
you're talking metrics. We're talking metrics here where like what makes a lead, right?
sure. Yes.
And right. So and that's already something most companies, if you talk to them, don't have a good handle on.
Or they have
Where
different
is the
definitions
or the
depending on what
different
team you're looking at.
right,
Like, and again,
right,
the point of what you're saying here is like, do businesses actually talk about that? Or do businesses just go along the road and just say, well, Tommy, you define it one way for what a customer is for you. Mike, you're in a
right,
different department. You're going to define a customer differently for you. And instead of having those two teams come together and talk about what should
right.
we define as a customer, and we may have two different definitions for customer, that's fine. You just can't call them both customer. Like
Exactly,
you
exactly.
need like more
So
information, like, hey, this is a, subscription customer. That's how Michael understands a
right.
customer. Tommy, you're talking
Is
about a paying customer. That's a
right.
different
You have to
definition.
give them different words and they have
Yes,
to have a different the biggest part
words
of
have meanings.
words have meaning. And if this is going to work, and again, we're talking still the 2D version of this. We're not talking
Yes.
3D
Yeah,
IQ.
correct. Hmm.
There has to be a shared and agreed upon definition for any data governance or data literacy to work. Literacy to work. You could throw out the data part here, man. Like just the idea of this conceptual side on my 2D art right now.
Hmm.
We're not everything you just said. I want to be very clear has nothing to do with Fabric IQ. This is business intelligence frustrations in a nutshell. So and we're still I mean, Mike, this is most of my projects still around this data governance and coming in. And this is the thing. This is why I started consulting. But like, oh, this is everywhere. Like, and you see it too. You have the data governance workshops that you do. This is obviously a big need. Now we're introducing here to what I love that you said, a layered another dimension to it. And I think we're having a lot of things here where I have concern about like the slowdown the companies are going to have, but it's almost a shift away from metrics, right? Because everything we were talking about were metrics, and now it's going to be this conversation around these entities. And Mike, I think we need to really dive into this because the data governance side of this, and I think we're just scratching the surface on what's going to make this successful, right? Because the technology I think Microsoft is putting the technology in place where we actually have a platform and the tools to make it work, right? Because I really do like how they're like, I'm looking at the user interface, just diving in, and this is still early on. That makes sense. It's a logical way that, in a sense, I would try to do it from a technological point of view, from a machine point of view. But that's maybe 20% of the battle of this working. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yes, I do agree with that. Um, I keep going back. So I'm excited about ontology, but I'm a bit skeptical right now. I don't want to go by way of the dodo bird on other areas. Like the
Yeah.
investment just gets removed from it because no one understands how it works and we can't align on it. So the ontology piece is going to have to be flexible enough to add value, kind of right out of the gate. And so I've just barely turned it on in my tenant. I'm
Right.
just starting now to figure out how to play with it. Like, the initial UI was a bit confusing. You have to attach it to like a SQL database, and then you have to get things going. So the setup of it is kind of starting to figure itself out. I need to get my head around it a little bit
Right.
more. So at the end of the day, like I understand what they're trying to do. I think with ontology, and I think the comment here as well. Thanks, uh, chat here. Fabric IQ is looking a lot like Palantir's ontology, which is a very similar. Again, it's a similar
Yeah.
concept. It's just allowing you to provide relationships between information. I think this needs to be used. I think the proof will be in the pudding here, right? Can we really get teams to start talking about defining things the way they need to define them? Is this going to help us get on paper a bit more of like, what does our business do? How does our business
Right.
run? And does that really effectively move the needle forward? And that's kind of where I'm holding my breath here a little bit around
Right.
ontology. I like the idea of it. It seems to make sense. But if I can't get agents and AI things to help me build it and make it quicker and go fast, like I don't want to click a bunch of buttons. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It needs to start helping me like figuring things
Right.
out. Why can't we build ontologies based on semantic models? Why can't we build ontologies backwards and saying, here's the pool of information that I have, go find relationships and build out what you think is the right ontology, and then I can correct it.
Oh,
There's one
so
concept here, Tommy, that we talked about, I think, recently on the podcast, which was you look at your company already has a huge amount of semantic models already
mhm,
built out. Those are already parts of ontologies that live in very small areas. How do we get from those hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of semantic models? How do we get that back into what we're trying to build, which is a company-wide ontology? That's where I think some of this value will become is there's this idea of like taking the top down approach, Tommy, which I think is kind of what you're speaking to is this is what we define, these are our business objects, this is how we build our business. But I think there's also a value in going from the reverse side. Here's what we've built. Here's the things that we have
oh,
created
okay,
and working our way
that's an
backwards
episode.
into what does the ontology look like. So I think there's actually another reverse pattern here as well, Tommy, where we're going backwards from here's the items you've created in your organization, walking your way back up and saying this is how we run our business. And then looking at the ontology that's being produced and saying, "Hmm, this doesn't make sense. I think we need to have a conversation here around products because it seems to be very confusing on how we're defining them, right?
Mm,
There may be things in our business that are very clear and don't need to be defined. You
right.
know, maybe customer is very clear across all business units on how they're building it and what they're doing. The ontology should clearly show us, oh, this is a very well-known item. Everything links back to this single table that it's being like whatever that is, we should be able to see that in the ontology,
Right.
and then we should be able to work our way back and say these other areas. And I think that also provides, again, looking backwards, Tommy, through the ontology is when we see lots of random tables around the products tables because the company doesn't understand them, you would see a large fracturing, a large variety of
Right.
the same data over and over again. And that would just tell me it's confusing. It's not being thought about correctly. And so someone needs to come in and organize it a bit better so that we all have the same understanding around what
Yeah.
that data is doing. Does that make sense what I'm describing there?
So as you're talking, I was writing some notes and I'm realizing that we have like 7 more topics right now for like that we're going to talk about for an hour because
Probably true.
because I'll briefly say the idea of working backwards. My initial reaction is I don't know if that will work, and I think that's an episode in itself. Because well, here's the thing.
Who knows?
Let's be real here. We are just touching the surface here. We are just beginning to, in a sense, conceptualize what this is going, the impact, what this means. So this is new for everyone, and let's be very clear that first off, if you get a message from someone that says, I'm going to be your expert on ontology, we've been doing it for years, you know, this scam. This is going to be new for everyone. And we're all scratching this. We're all just scratching the surface here. So, Mike, I really want to dive in with you. And I think this deserves conversation around because here's the thing, Mike, we're finally getting to we're diving into philosophy and data. And I've never been more happy in my life. So I think with that, I think my closing thoughts, because I know we're well past time. I am very excited about what happened with Ignite. Outside of the 91 features, this Fabric IQ has the potential to be one of the greatest impacts to my career that's really happened since Power BI came out. I'm not
Hmm.
saying it is right now, but it absolutely has the potential. If AI continues to be a integrated part of my workflow, my career, my life, and an
Hmm.
organization, and the influence of the data there, then this has the potential to really be where, in a sense, my focus is. Where I'm going to say 10 years from now, yeah, bar charts used to be important. That's what I used to do. Are we there yet? There are so many other factors to consider that we have not even thought about yet. And I think for a lot of people listening, regardless, is start getting your expertise, start learning about data governance if you've not done so. To me, that is going to be the essential piece here outside of the technology.
Final thoughts on this one. I'm very optimistic on this whole ontology thing. I think this is a great move. I think there's more relationships across your data than we can experience. This idea of like one semantic model for your entire business, I think, is a concept. I think
Mm,
conceptually it exists. Do I want to make one semantic model for my entire business? No, I do not. I do not care to do that. However, the metadata, the data that describes where our data comes from, I think there is a ontology of your business, one that should exist for everything you do. 100%. That is a single item that should exist inside your fabric experience or your fabric space. Like, there is something everyone could sit down and on a whiteboard draw out your business in its entirety. What gets confusing is when you start giving different teams or different areas their particular area. There's a whole bunch of nuances to every single area.
mhm.
You know, shipping, marketing, production, distribution. All these things have a lot of nuances in their area, and those team members are experienced in that area. I think about at the end of the day, it's allowing people to be flexible to figure out how to be very nuanced with their data for their department, but also be able to relate that back to the broader part of the organization and how you fit in. So,
Yeah.
I guess I'll lean on the fact again. If these things are not, I guess this probably could be the same thing we've said with reporting, Tommy. Right? If this ontology item isn't saving your company money or making your company money, you shouldn't use it. So if it's saving you time, if it's saving you money with the ontology
This is
piece,
so good.
I'm not sure you should incorporate it into your business flow. Same thing with reports. If your report you're building isn't making you money or saving you money, I'm not sure it's valuable. So I'm going to end on that bombshell there. We'll leave it at that. Tommy, I know you're going to have lots more comments. So from
This
this
is so
conversation,
good.
make sure, hey, facilitator, make sure you add an action item for
We
us to talk about more of these
we should
concepts
really
in the
have
future.
facilitator on our podcast. I think that would help us remember things.
It's very true. And have it generate new topics from episodes. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I'll just throw that in there now. Maybe we should have a new section of the podcast called Facilitator. Hey, facilitator. I don't
That's a
even
great
know.
idea, actually.
Anyways, that being said, thank you all very much for listening. We do appreciate the chat. Thank you, chat, very much for participating and adding your thoughts there. We really do appreciate you jumping in and listening to us there as well. Thank you so much. We do love this podcast and we have a lot of fun on this as well. Please make sure you subscribe. If you want to have episodes as they come out as soon as they're published, make sure you become a member. Members will get all podcast episodes as they are produced. And also, all episodes will come with no ads if you become a member of our YouTube channel. So if you don't like ads and you just want to listen to the podcast straight up, we'd highly recommend you become a member on the channel as well. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It really helps us out a ton. And do you have a question? I'm sure people have questions from this conversation today. And if you have a question, idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, well, do it now. Head over to powerba.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. Quick note on the mailbag, Mike. We've been getting a ton in, and we are just trying to comb through them. So
Yes.
please
Keep it
leave
up.
one. We love them.
Keep it
You can
up.
join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all of Tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much. And we really appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.